Hello, and welcome to the Right Opinion Podcast. My name is Tiana, or Tiana, which is with a J, and this is the podcast where I, as a writer, like to talk about different topics, pop culture, world news, and look at them through the lens of a writer. And today's topic is why sports are a scam and what I think you should do instead. Basically, at this point, I feel like I should just call this the unpopular opinion podcast because I feel like I just have opinions that most people don't. If you even watched my last video on why I think everything is ugly, this will tie into that a little bit. But as some of you may know, probably most of you, it's hard to avoid it. The European Championship for soccer or football happened, and for those of you that don't know, it was England versus Spain, and Spain won. And the only reason that I know this is because I saw it on Instagram, and then of course I wanted to double check for this podcast. Otherwise, I literally could not care less. But since sports are so prevalent in the world and they literally cannot be avoided, even for people like me who try desperately to avoid them, I've been thinking a lot about sport as an institution and what sorts of people partake in sports and everything around sports in general. I'll be talking a lot about soccer and football, but these examples I think apply to a lot of other sports. This episode though is specifically going to talk about people who are fans of sports, because I know when I bring this up, people, when I say sports, are actually useless for most people, and there's really no benefit to them. You know, people automatically go, no, but you learn about how to be a team player, and it's good for your body, you're exercising, and it's good for your mental. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about you going to have fun with your friends and play a game of volleyball like I did with my training team, or occasionally you and your friends will just have a soccer game for fun. And nor am I actually talking about players who dedicate their literal entire lives to this craft to become, masters of the sport. People like Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, I can't remember his name right now, his full name, Novak Djokovic, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Those people are in a league of their own, and very, very, very few people are ever going to reach that particular level, even people that are in pro sports. But I'm talking about the people who are determined to make sport their literal only identity that they have. And why is this important for us as a writer? It is because, obviously, as writers, we have to craft characters. We have to craft characters with likes, dislikes. They have certain things that shape the core of who they are. And so, to me, it's by studying the people around me in different situations that help me as a writer to then craft better fictional characters and make them seem more realistic, which is part of the reason of why I'm going to be talking about this topic, and also just in general why I have this podcast. It's to analyze the world around us and interpret it through the lens of a writer, but also how we can utilize that to make our own writing better. And so this is about the people who basically I've decided it's idolatry. The sports to them are idolatry. So let's start with some of the basic stuff, which is these people that dedicate hundreds, if not thousands of hours of their lives watching sport, whether it's on TV, whether it's going to in-person games, whether it's, following all the pre-show stuff, the highlights. The people that are deeply into sports have spent thousands of hours watching sports. So just, first of all, it takes up so much of your time time that you really realistically could spend doing other things and better things. And then there's the sheer amount of money that people spend on sports. So there's the tickets that are exorbitantly priced. There's, if you actually go to a game, you have to buy food, you have to buy drinks. People buy jerseys that are seriously overpriced. You have, if you're watching on TV, now they've come up with, pay-per-view, the special channels, or you're paying for your sports subscription channels, so you're spending money on that. And so if you're doing this for years and years and years, you've probably spent at least a few $1,000s, if not in the tens, and like some people in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I want you to think about where that money is going. You, as the spectator, are directly paying the salaries of these players, the millions and millions and millions of dollars that these people get to mostly throw, kick, and move a ball around in various different ways. I mean, realistically, all the sports are basically the same. Basketball, you have a ball and you dribble it across the court and you throw it. Football, you have a ball and you kick it around the court to all your other players. In golf, you hit a ball with a fancy stick into a hole, which is basically the same as a soccer goal or a basketball hoop. Even some of the more elite sports, let's say like polo, you are still hitting a ball with a fancy stick. You're just doing it on a horse. So it's the same concept, slightly iterated most of the time, and yet everyone is so obsessed with this. But you then are literally paying for all of this with your time, money, attention, and you are directly being advertised to, because all these players and their jerseys, they've got their sponsorships on them. The arenas are sponsored. You're sitting there and you're watching commercials by institutions that are trying to sell you something. They're actually making you the product. They're not even selling you a product. You are the product that they are taking advantage of to convince you to adopt a certain type of identity. And so one thing that I talked about in, I think this was like my second podcast that I ever did, was how people will pay hundreds of dollars for a jersey that has a player's name on it. And to me, that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, what self-respecting person, and particularly a self-respecting man, buys a shirt with another man's name on it and then wears that shirt that he paid at least probably $100 for, and then on top of that he is free advertising for whatever sponsor is on the front of the shirt? So you then are advertising, Emirates, some sort of gambling company, I don't know, McDonald's, whatever. You are then freely advertising for a company that is not going to pay you to do that and literally could not care less about you as a person. So I really don't understand why anybody would do that. I don't care how much you love someone, you say you love, again, a person who doesn't know you and doesn't care about you. I don't care what you say. There's no way you can justify that to me. But also, you got to think about this, the sponsors, their products, I bet you most of these players don't even use them. Yet you, as the spectator, are being brainwashed into then buying these products. Have you guys ever seen that clip of Cristiano Ronaldo where he sat down for like an interview and there's like 2 Coca-Cola bottles sitting in front of him and he looks at them and he takes them and he moves them away? And I really respect that, because he's like, I don't drink Coca-Cola. I would never drink Coca-Cola. I don't want to give the impression to my fans that I, as an elite football player that's one of the best in the entire world, that I even look at this crap, let alone actually ingest it. But most players are not like that. They're freely wearing their sponsors, they're in commercials for a whole bunch of crap. Like when I see athletes advertising energy drinks, like, do you seriously believe that this elite athlete is chugging a Red Bull or a Monster or whatever other random brand of sports, like not even sports drink, sorry, energy drink out there. They're not. It's not conducive to them playing at an elite level. They're just doing it for the money, and they're trying to convince you that, yeah, if you like me, I like this, you should like it too. Another thing that I really hate about sponsors, particularly here in Serbia, is that there is the big gambling companies, the betting companies. They tend to be the ones that are sponsoring our sports teams. And so, they're trying to convince you that if you, use their platform, you too have the chance to make millions of euros or dollars. And, your favorite player, Jokic, Djokovic, they're making gazillions of dollars. If you use our platform, you have the chance to make that kind of money too. You just gotta bet right. Like, come on. These people are keeping their money, their millions, in very secure banks, offshore accounts. They're not, some people are gambling. I can't deny that. But realistically, the people who actually know how to manage their money, they're not gambling it away down the drain at some random betting company. Like, let's be realistic. So again, to me, this is all mostly a money-grabbing scheme. So going back to the jerseys for a second, has anybody noticed that every single year they come up with new jerseys? Like, I know they do this in football. They come up with a new jersey every single year, but there's a home jersey and there's an away jersey, and it's different every single year. And you, as the fan, as the supportive, loving, devout fan, you need to go out and buy the latest jersey. And then, of course, there's limited edition jerseys, and there's, I don't even know at this point. It's like fashion. They've turned it into a fashionable industry in a way where it's the same thing. Every year there's a new fashion show, there's a new fashion item, and you need to go buy it, which you don't. But yeah, so then it's just extortion at this point. Again, for the amount of money that you pay, but this is literally just idolatry. And if you are in any way remotely religious, I'm Christian Orthodox, so if you come from a Christian background, you know specifically that idolatry is not a good thing. But what else do you call this when you spend hours and hours and hours watching sports? You spend hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to follow around your sports team. You buy merch, tickets, food, and even your whole mental state can be dependent on your team winning or losing. We've all seen the stories of people when their teams lose and they just go bonkers. They go crazy. They're destroying public property. We're going to get into the violence aspect a little bit. But, you're going to let a team with people that you don't know, who have nothing to do with you, completely derail your inner state based off of if they win or lose. I don't understand that. There's a beautiful quote from the book 1984 by George Orwell. Some of you may have heard about him or that book. And there's a quote in that book where he writes, "Football, beer, and above all, gambling filled up the horizon of their minds. To keep them in control was not difficult. All that was required of them was a primitive patriotism which could be appealed to make them accept longer working hours and shorter rations." So, that's also another interesting aspect which George Orwell really talked about in 1984 is the control aspect. So some of you may have heard of the Roman circus, which is essentially in ancient Rome, when the emperor and when the consuls and all the powerful people in the empire, when they wanted to control the population, when the population was getting a little too rowdy, they were getting restless and annoyed with their rulers, what the emperors did is they built things like the Colosseum and they had the gladiator fights, and they had the games, and they gave them bread. So you give people food, and you give them entertainment, and they forget all about what you, as the government, are doing behind the scenes. And they just, it's gone. You just got to give them a little bit of a distraction, and then you can go ahead doing whatever it is that you want to do. That is a form of control. And it seems like most people that watch sports don't seem to realize that whatsoever. Again, I don't care how much you say you love a team or you love a particular player. I want to tell you a quick little story. So when I was in Amsterdam in March, I went to an Irish pub for St. Patrick's Day with a friend of mine, and there was a football game playing. I believe it was Manchester United versus Manchester City. And the only reason I know even what these teams are is because I had an ex-boyfriend who was obsessed with Manchester United. So, you date someone long enough, you kind of learn the things that they like. But they were playing, and it's as usual in a bar, people are yelling, and whether their team almost gets a goal, or if they miss a goal, and everyone's freaking out. And I think if it was Manchester United at one point got their first goal, and there's a man sitting at the bar, but in one of those bar stools, so it's raised up, and he had his leg resting on the little leg rest on the chair. And when Man United scored a goal, he jumped is putting it like, he leapt out of his chair, but his leg got tangled up in like the footrest of the chair, and so he ended up falling down onto the ground, literally in front of everyone in this bar, and then got back up on his knees and just screaming. I don't know, to me this is just not normal behavior, personally speaking. That you should be leaping out of chairs in public spaces and then potentially getting injured because of it. But we have normalized that, unfortunately, as a society, that this is perfectly normal and acceptable behavior, and I don't understand why. I'm going to play a clip that's from Sky News, and they were asking some British soccer fans, football fans for you Europeans before you come for me, what they were doing to, celebrate the fact that England got into the European Championship. And so I'll let the people in the clip explain for themselves their thoughts, and then we'll go into it a little bit.
Line and just bought 4 tickets for a resale site, StubHub. Nothing was going to stop me from coming. So,
how much have you guys spent?
So for the 4 tickets, it was €12,000, so about £10,000, and then we've got our flights and accommodation, which we had to do last minute. Nothing was going to stop us from coming.
So you guys have probably spent about 12 to 14 grand to get here.
Yeah, I'd say around 14.
Is it worth it?
Honestly, I think it's worth every single penny. It will probably be one of the only times I get to go to Euro finals, especially with England in it. And hopefully we win. If we win, it will just be the most amazing day of my life. I've probably lived every single day of my life just to see England win a trophy, and it'll just be a dream come true if we win.
So, as you can see, like I said, tens of thousands of dollars being spent. They literally spent like 3,000 euros each for a ticket, not including the fact that they have to get, I think it was in Germany, the final, wherever they had to go. So that's not including the flights to get there. That's not including the food that they're going to have to eat there. Probably whatever other random merchandise they're going to purchase. But what was really key, although to me it's just desperate to be honest, was the second guy, where he said, if England wins, it's going to be the best day of his entire life, and that he's been waiting his entire life for this moment. And this is where the identity part comes in. That, he's a young guy, so, maybe he hasn't hit some of those big milestones that we consider a happiest days of people's lives, getting married, having kids, finishing college, maybe starting a business, some of those big milestones that people have. This guy has admitted that the best day of his life is going to be dependent on a group of men kicking around a ball who, again, have no idea who this guy is, are never going to know who this guy is. They're never, whatever happens to them is not going to be affected by this guy. And again, this random person has absolutely no influence on how the team is going to play. So he has no direct role even in what is going to end up supposedly being the best day of his life. But because this has become so ingrained in him as his identity that it's literally dependent on what other people are doing, of course it's going to be the best thing that could happen to him because that's what he's made it. Who cares about his own personal accomplishments? What's more important is the accomplishments of other people. And apparently, yeah, he's supporting his team. Like Orwell said, all that was required of them was a primitive patriotism. That's all it is. It's a so-called primitive patriotism where you are being brainwashed into thinking that you are a patriot and that you are doing something for your country, which you're not. And again, it's just, I find that personally really depressing to see and hear, and I think it's just, I feel sad for the young man because he clearly, is lacking some sort of fulfillment in his own personal life that he now has to project onto sports. Let's go into the violence aspect of sports a little bit. Soccer is particularly known for its violent tendencies with its fans particularly. There's been racist remarks made towards players by the spectators in various different countries. There's been riots that have been started, before games, after games, during games, where literally spectators start attacking each other. They're setting fire to the arena. Drunkenness is obviously a very common and socially acceptable thing, whether you're watching in a pub or even if you're just in the arena. They're pumping you guys full of beer and whatever other stuff they let you get your hands on. And then again, you're being manipulated and controlled into acting certain ways based on the outcome of what other people are doing. We've heard about how people that are drunk, and they come home, especially if their team lost, they're in a bad mood, and that can lead to domestic violence in their own families. So again, you as I don't want to say it's just men, but realistically speaking, it's probably more men. But you don't have the self-control over your own mental state to then go home, despite how upset you may feel, and not take it out on the rest of your family. So you're putting your own family through the misery that you feel, which is entirely just abhorrent. But then there's the coming from Serbia. Politics plays very much a role into a lot of things, and soccer is no exception. So I'm giving you Serbia as the main example simply because, I live here, so I see a lot of things. It comes up on my Instagram a lot. So I know that there was, I think it was Albanians. They were saying, like, F Macedonia, which also doesn't make a lot of sense to me because there's plenty of Albanians that live in Macedonia. Of course, they were also chanting, kill a Serb, and then they were showing ultra-nationalistic symbols, which is awesome, really great to see as a Serbian. But then also, the Serbian team and other countries that also support Serbia are bringing banners saying Kosovo is Serbia, Kosovo is the heart of Serbia. Now, of course, I don't disagree with that particular statement. However, let's be realistic. None of these slurs, insults, or political statements are going to make any sort of difference in the grand political scheme of things, okay? Do you think that the president of your country or my country really cares about what a bunch of random, drunk, brainwashed sports spectators care about in regards to their politics. No. I don't know why. Like, what's the point? You're just inciting problems and riots. And so all of these teams, they've all been fined, like, I don't know, 14,000 euros. One was like 13,000 euros. So again, where's the club getting all that money from? They're getting tons of it from you as the spectators. So then you yourselves are preventing your own club or team from playing further in some of these championships or some of these games, and they have to pay a fine using the money that you paid to be there in the first place. So, I mean, I'm genuinely confused about how anybody is benefiting from this, again, spectator-wise. And what's particularly interesting to me, I guess, interesting but also depressing, is there's rankings to sports. Some of you may not have realized that, and I didn't realize it at first either until I started paying attention more to this sort of thing and hearing about it. But there are, let's say, poor sports or lower class, middle class sports, and then you've got your higher class, rich sports. So, you think about it. Let's say the lower class stuff like boxing, basketball, football. Now, of course, there's a lot of money in these industries, but the people that participate in those sports, especially as children, might be able to come from lower socioeconomic classes, whereas sports like tennis, equestrianism, golf, these sports that we kind of consider elite, and they require a lot of money up front to participate in. There's a very contrasting difference between the spectators in those types of sports, in the way that they dress, in the way that they behave, in the sorts of sponsors too that are in those sports. So like Rolex, for example, is a popular sponsor of tennis. Coca-Cola is a very popular sponsor for, basketball. If you watch the commercials during a basketball game, it's betting, Coca-Cola, fast food like McDonald's, KFC, and whatever else. You're not going to see, KFC advertisements during a polo match. That's never going to happen. And even the uniforms for these players, you don't have these big flashy sponsorships on the uniforms. You might have the one little brand logo, the little tiny like Lacoste or the Ralph Lauren that's barely visible. And the spectators, they're not, wearing beer helmets and getting drunk and screaming, and they're very well dressed, suits, dresses, and they're respectable. Granted, though, again, what I'm trying to get at is tennis, I guess, I don't know, with increasing wealth in general of the population, we've seen, I personally think, some, let's say, degradation in tennis. So one main example is that there's a player. Her name is Monica Seles. She played for former Yugoslavia, and America. And so she, by 20 years old, had already won like 8 titles. She was basically the best female player in the world, or if not one of the best. And during one of her matches, she was actually stabbed in her back by a deranged spectator who came to this game, and while she was sitting on the side, like during a break or a changeover or something, this deranged lunatic jumped out of the stands wielding a knife and stabbed her because he was obsessed with her rival, the German player Steffi Graf. So she wasn't even playing her in that game, but he was so obsessed with Steffi Graf, he didn't want her to lose, and Monica, I guess, was her biggest rival, that he then decided to stab her in the back, and she was unable to play tennis for like the next 2 years. And even though she did come back and tried to play again, she was never able to again play at the same level that she was before. Had she been able to continue, she might have been one of the best female players of all time. I mean, she probably could have been like Serena Williams right now. I'm just speculating, I don't know. But she was on that sort of trajectory, and she got taken out by a lunatic with a knife. I mean, and again, this is a rich sport. Tennis is like an elite sport. And then, obviously, if anybody pays attention to tennis, Djokovic in one of his matches now for Wimbledon, I guess the spectators were booing or something. I didn't watch the match, so I don't know. But he was upset at how the public was acting during the match. And I don't think this is the first time stuff like that has happened. So, tennis is one of those sports where everybody, you sit there and you be quiet and you just watch the match. It's not like hockey or something where you're yelling and screaming and throwing stuff. And it's not that kind of sport. But I guess with the I don't know how to say this nicely, but people from lower classes being able to then get into these upper class sports, but not understanding the rules of behavior in those sports, the decorum and what's expected of them as spectators. They don't know the etiquette and the rules, or maybe they just don't care. I mean, that's totally realistic too. But they're starting to kind of affect and degrade a certain level to what is in this sport. And so I guess to conclude, what I'm trying to say is that sports in all are a giant distraction. They are a giant distraction under the guise of so-called patriotism, camaraderie, teamwork, sportsmanship, your own personal achievement. But if you, as an individual, allow something to take away your biggest assets, which are your time and information, to the point where, you're willing to go broke because of them, then you ultimately have lost your sense of individuality. You have let your personal identity be hijacked by an institution that only cares to milk you for everything that you're worth, your time and attention that it can get out of you. And you've fallen for it. What do I think you should do instead? I mean, I think it's obvious. I think you should read a book. or better yet, try to write a book. Because ultimately, the only people that are benefiting from this are the sports teams' owners who are making a ton of money, and the sponsors who are making a ton of money, and the players who are making a ton of money. And so I think you need to take control of your life and actually do something that is a personal achievement of your own, to craft an identity of your own. What will you do that will be meaningful, that will be significant, that will, be a true testament to your patriotism, not the fact that you managed to get really drunk and pay a bunch of money to see your country's soccer team play a game. That's not real patriotism. So, books, with reading, you're going to get your attention span back. We know the benefits of reading, increasing your vocabulary, learning how to be more empathetic, just learning about new topics in general. And it's an excellent source of entertainment that typically lasts longer than a sports game anyway. I mean, sports game's going to last, 3 hours? You can read a book, it's going to take you 7 to 8 hours. It's more entertaining than a movie, and you can take it everywhere. And it's a lot cheaper, too. I mean, most books, you can get them, brand new, 10 to 20 bucks. You can go get them used for $1. You can get them for free. It's a much cheaper and better hobby. And then if you actually try to write a book, it's a process that will require much of you. But if you can do it, and I say this for any artistic endeavor, it doesn't specifically have to be writing, but, do something, create something of your own that you can truly put your name on it, that will be a personal achievement of yours and will leave a legacy behind that you can actually be proud of, because your legacy can't be, oh yeah, I went to 70 soccer games in my life and I spent $100,000 over the course of my lifetime and I bought every single jersey of Man United's ever created, and you're gonna, just have that laid out on your wall? People at your funeral are gonna talk about that. Oh yeah, that guy, he didn't do much, but don't worry, every Friday night he was in the pub watching the team. He traveled across country to watch that game that one time, and he had every jersey. Man United to the end, or whatever team you're a fan of. I really don't think that's what most of you want to have as your lasting legacy and what you want to be known for. So I think you need to reevaluate and what it is that you truly would like your life to look like. Because you're not Cristiano Ronaldo, you're not LeBron James, you're not Wayne Gretzky or whatever other sports player that you're obsessed with. You're never going to be them, and they don't care about you. So you need to focus on you and actually making something of yourself. So that's my little rant on sports and why I think they're a scam. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think I'm kind of way off base here and I am just a hater, I suppose? Or, have you noticed some of these things? Or I'm really curious to hear your guys' thoughts about this. So leave them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this episode, I hope to see you in the next one. And you already know what to do. So bye.